The third section is the muscle activation test. So the point of this is to see where the muscles are firing from. The philosophy behind this is, one, that our body is supposed to move in a back chain dominant manner. What this means is, if you think about it realistically, is that the muscles on the posterior side of your body are generally larger. Think your glute is the largest muscle in your entire body, and therefore is responsible for controlling and stabilizing lower body movements. In sport, no matter what you play, you're always running, changing direction. You should be using the back side of your body. Same thing with your upper chain. Part of protecting your shoulders is keeping your chest high and your shoulders back. That happens from having strong posterior back muscles. So in this, we're going to have Christian perform 4 different activities, of which it's supposed to feel the burn after so many reps in certain areas. However, if our athlete feels them or we're not trying to target, it shows, one, a disconnect in the chain. It can explain some issues with their form and with their movement, and where there may be areas where we can help improve them and help them gain more power, normally by targeting their posterior muscles. The first activity that we're going to have them do is called a glute drop-in. It's very similar to a backward lunge, but the down phase in this, you should be landing in whatever your normal running stance form is. I will explain it after, but we are trying to target a certain area in this. So without modifying his form, I'm just going to show you what he should do, and he's going to try to mimic me. You're going to do it for as many reps as until you feel a burn or tension, and we're going to do it on both sides. So the motion is just here. So you're going to write this down, and where Christian felt the burn, that is going to show us where he's activating muscles when he moves. Like I said before, we'd like to see more of a back chain, and this exercise is actually supposed to target your glutes. This shows the disconnects where maybe he's not firing from certain areas, and definitely shows areas where we can improve his power and his sprint speed if we can modify his form and able to target his glutes open squats. Being quad dominant also makes you more prone to having injuries, especially in the knee area. So this is something important to note and to look for in the future. We'll also confirm this later with the manual test. Alright, so the next exercise is called fascia hops. These are very similar to just regular 2-feeted hops. You're just not leaving the ground for as long, and you're trying not to keep your ankle from touching the ground. Again, what I was talking about earlier, your dorsiflexors, your anterior tib. This shows strength in those areas as well as ankle stability. I highly recommend recording the person do this so you can see if there is an internal ankle collapse, if the knees are giving it at all. But again, we are mainly trying to figure out where he feels this activity. So you're going to do small hops until you feel it. So it should look like this. So you can feel tension anywhere, let me know where.
Back of the calves.
Calves. These past two, we're supposed to be targeting your glutes. When you look at your muscles, the way that they move, their origins and their insertions, where they're supposed to pull from, it generally goes from the top of your foot, up to your tips, around, and back chain. So even while doing this, you are supposed to feel your glutes, so feeling it anywhere, and it's very common to feel it in the calves. It shows that there is a disconnect in the chain somewhere, that they might, again, be utilizing smaller muscles for bigger muscle actions. So again, not a huge problem, it just shows us a possible area of future injury, If he had had any ankle injuries before, it could possibly explain that as well. And it shows us areas where we can improve his form and improve his power output.
On the best.
So the next exercise is a hinge at the hip. It's very similar. The next exercise is a hinge at the hip. This is very similar to a straight-legged deadlift. This is more to see on the back chain area where you're feeling the tension. This is also the only exercise where we are going to modify your form, because no matter what form you have, we prefer that you have the one that we instill in training, because either way you're going to feel it, but with the form basis that we are, you can see where the disconnect is in the chain. So I'm actually going to have you turn that way. So your feet are going to be pointed together and ankles split apart. You can spread them out so they're not touching. Go a little shorter. Make a little shorter. There you go. And you're going to break at the hip, keeping your chest high, and just down until you feel tension. So keeping your chest up. There you go. You can have a little bit of bend in your knee. Chest up. There you go. All right. Pretty good. Hamstrings?
Sometimes like back.
Okay. So he says he feels this in his hamstrings and his back. The hinge of the hip, you are supposed to feel in your hamstrings. Upper hamstrings is kind of what we're looking for, because that's closer to the glute, but this is definitely a more stretch for the hamstrings. People have certain disconnects. We commonly see it in right behind the kneecap, and if it's a lot of tightness, even down so far as the Achilles, that shows a lot of tightness in the ligaments back here. So that was good, Robert. He did say that he had some tightness in his back, so that shows a back flexibility issue. Also, because we had him in internal rotation, it maybe shows that there are some issues with his hip mobility that is triggering pain or weakness into his lower back. So that's something that we'll discuss further, but it gives us a good indication of things to look at and things to trigger. All right, the last one that we were using for the muscle activation test is to target the upper body. Another common injury is shoulder strain. So we find the main proprietor of this is having either overdeveloped muscles or tightness in your front chain or weakness in your back chain, which is pulling forward and is not protecting the shoulder joint as well as it could be. So this is a banded row. We're gonna set up the band about parallel to where the elbow reaches on the body. There you go, grab that. An underhand grip. Slightly wider apart, and there you're just going to pull in, keeping your shoulders down and back, and here. Okay. Do that all the way, extend all the way out. Okay, and do that for a couple reps. Here, you're cracking. And let me know where you're feeling that one.
Right back muscles.
Back muscles? Like upper or here?
Right there.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay. So combinations that we see is that one, a lot of people will feel tightness or pain in their shoulder. That's where we'll feel the tension. That shows a disconnect. Normally the pec minor is tight. That means there's not enough development. The other thing that we see is that often when the shoulders aren't being stabilized enough, you have a lot of tightness in your traps. So this this exercise is geared to activate the central back of your lats, but if you are feeling it higher, it shows that there is tension in your traps up here, which means you're either sitting in a normal hunch position, you're not protecting your shoulders well enough in your body, and therefore you're having to compensate it with these muscles up here. Again, shows us something to work on, shows us an area to kind of relieve that tension, and ways that we can modify his form to situate more centrally. So the final part of this initial assessment is the manual field test. Basically what we use this for is by using what we gathered during the initial testing phases, their previous, their self-assessment, that statement, we can feel around to kind of see where muscle tightness is. Muscle tightness is very indicative of what muscles you're utilizing, and it kind of helps us not only make conclusions from what we've said before, but confirm things we thought, maybe show us something new. So I'm just going to show you some points on Christian that I feel like there's probably tightness or issues with, and this is also the point of the session where you can kind of give them that manual labor to relieve some of this tension and pressure. So one, I saw that throughout his testing phases he had troubles activating his glutes. things that will do is give you tightness in your quad up here, your hip flexors, as well as your gluteus med, normally closer to the kneecap because that's where the disconnect is. So I'm just going to put pressure in certain areas and you just let me know if you can feel tightness there. So starting up here, we're going to go for the front of the quad, no more Yep, scrunching, so yes, I can definitely feel tightness there. Mid quad, I'd say there's a knot probably right there. Another grunt, so yes. Again, one of the things failing to activate your glute is that the front of your leg is taking a majority of the pressure, so that's where you're going to find a lot of knots because it's taking all of this weight-bearing load and all this force that it shouldn't have to because it's compensating for the glutes not being actively fired. This often puts a lot of strain on the knee, so like I said, side, oh wow, that is, yep, got a head roll, that, so right there is definitely something where we feel tension. Another thing that I saw in his two-footed stance was that he had ankle collapse. I could also see it in his jumps. So normally what that means is either weakness or tightness in your anterior fib that is not allowing that ankle stability. So that would normally be up here. Yep, wince. And normally, straighten this out. Just feeling it on the sides. And yeah, I can feel a knot right there. So, internally, we find that most people have their tightness on the outside parts of their body and the front. I'm also going to make the guesstimate that he has tightness in his calf. We saw that in the hinge as well as where he was activating when he had the fascia hops. I'm trying to think of anything else on top that we would see. Oh, he had tight traps. You could tell from your put your arms on your side. So the activity in which we had him do the banded row, we saw that he didn't have tension up here, but did have it in his upper back. That normally shows tight traps. So this can indicate maybe he has more of a hunching manner the majority of the day, or he's not activating his upper back chain enough. While he felt the tension here, I'm going to just, I'm also going to check, like I said, normally there's an issue with your pecs and your pec minors, which is overcompensating for the back not being able to pull the shoulder blades together or pull your chest back. So I'm going to have you lift this arm, we'll lift this side. And yep, we got a flinch, okay. So again, this is the front half of his, the top half of his body, but we can see how things that we saw in the training, in the assessments, the movement analysis, areas in which we can tell there's going to be tightness. Because even feeling the body, you can feel knots, you feel tension, and there's pain there. So training athletes going further, one, we want to alleviate this pain, but as well as teach them how to move in a way where they won't build up these tension spots and they can properly move their body. Because as well, if you're injured or you feel tightness or discomfort in an area, normally you're going to overcompensate somewhere else, causing pain and discomfort in another area. It all works together in a chain, but again, this is the end process in order to kind of confirm your findings, figure out where exactly things are going from getting a hands-on field basis. So we are going to have him flip over and test a few things in the back. Make sure that you're making a note on your sheet of everything that you see so that you have a collection for later.